All right, welcome back. Um, Basketball. I guess we can start with men's basketball, who just beat Texas Longhorns this past weekend.
Another close battle for the Tigers, but they moved on to their eighth straight victory.
And that's something to me is a little bit of a concern when you sit there and think about it. They had a double-digit lead against Florida, 10-point lead, I want to say, and going into the final 3 minutes, lost that. Ended up winning by two. Had a 16-point lead against the Longhorns, gave that up, ended up winning by two. There's a pattern here. For whatever reason, they cannot seem to hold on to a lead.
I mean, it's a concern. I wouldn't say it's a concern right now, but it's when they get into like the closer we get to March is when LSU needs to start tightening up on how to finish games because eventually that's going to haunt them. I mean, you're already in a tough conference. I mean, they got to go to Alabama tomorrow night. And Alabama's they're not as good as they used to be, but they are a very gritty team, and they can compete with anybody in the SEC. They've been proving that. But as LSU gets closer to March, and if LSU wants to make a deep run in the tournament this year, they gotta learn how to finish games, and they gotta learn how to keep their foot on the gas pedal, because eventually it's going to haunt them, and it's probably going to hit them in the worst way.
Right. So okay. Let's take a look at some stats here. The uh, the men are officially 15 and 4, 6 and 0 in the conference, 10 and 1 at home, 4 and 1 away, and 1 and 2 at neutral sites. I would say that Skylar Mays has officially taken on the role as like the closer of this team. Seems to be the leader of this team. Javante Smart has really come along as a scorer after kind of like an okay freshman year.
And also Darius Days, I mean, leading the team in rebounds with almost 8 rebounds a game. I mean, he's a guy that LSU heavily depends on in the paint.
You know, so this is a really good LSU team. I'm impressed so far. Although I am starting to get to a point where I more or less expect this from Will Wade's teams, what I need to see now is more consistency with taking and holding the lead.
And not getting into these, I mean, you're going to encounter close games, but I mean, what I'm seeing from LSU is that this is a team that has a lot of heart and grit. And this is a team that knows how to dig deep and knows how to keep pounding and pull out victories. But they got to be careful because if they start falling behind it, they might put themselves in a hole they can't dig themselves out of. But I mean, I'm impressed with the team so far. They're finally back in the top 25. Uh, Last time they were in the top 25, they ended up getting knocked out by ETSU at home. And so hopefully LSU can keep this momentum going. March is slowly approaching, and this college basketball season has gone by a lot quicker than I thought, a lot quicker than we all thought. And so we're getting closer to, we're deep in the conference play. We're getting closer to March.
Yeah. Um, we're running into some questions is with women's basketball. I mean, I'll be honest, I've not been the most impressed with women's basketball, but then again, like we have said in the past, we are talking about
You know,
comparing to a team that once had the likes of Simone Augustus,
Sylvia Fowles,
Flower,
Erica White,
Erica
Pokey
White.
Chapman at head coach.
Yeah,
I mean, back when Pokey Chapman was the head coach, they were the squad to play for. That was the team to beat. I mean, in the SEC, I mean, who could hang with LSU? The only team that was able to stand toe to toe with LSU was Tennessee, and this was a Pat Summitt team we're talking about. I mean, may God rest her soul. Um, when we get to tournament time, who's the team that LSU always runs into? You had teams like Rutgers, led by C. Vivian Stringer, UConn, led by Gina Ariema, and Baylor, led by Kim Mulkey. And those teams, I mean, the top five teams in college basketball every year for women's was LSU, Tennessee, Rutgers, UConn, Baylor. It was those teams. So, but the dynamic has really changed, except if you're UConn. But I haven't seen that same venom out of LSU since the departure of Pokey Chapman. And I started noticing a decline towards the end of Van Chancellor's tenure as head coach. And Nikki Caldwell became head coach, and I saw some good things of LSU women's basketball. I'm seeing some good things this year, like when they had their victory over Kentucky, a big win over Kentucky at home. They were able to take Mississippi State, who's a top 10 team, down to the wire. They were able to take a very talented Tennessee team down the wire. But it's just, I don't know if LSU's going to get back on the map to being that powerhouse we've always been accustomed to seeing.
Right. Well, they are 14-5 overall. However, they're a mediocre 4-3 in conference, and that is pretty much going to be the thing that ends up hurting them. If you ask me, is that conference record, because that is largely what the committee looks at. First is your conference record.
Well, I mean, LSU has always been a team that they've always had a knack for going to the NCAA tournament, but I haven't seen like late runs from, like, I'm gonna go back to the Pokey Chapman team because I missed that LSU women's basketball because they were fun to watch. They were always a team that was always going to like Sweet 16, Elite 8, Final Four. I have seen improvement over the past season or two from Nikki Caldwell's Tigers, but I don't know. I'll just have to see a little more from them.
You think it's recruiting, not being able to nab those big name recruits?
I think it is. I think it's heavily on recruiting, not getting those top players like LSU used to get.
Because you look at recruiting in women's basketball has certainly dropped off as far as recruiting versus Will Wade, who has routinely gotten top 10 classes the last 2 to 3 seasons. So, I do think there's a difference there as far as the caliber of recruiting has been.
Well, I mean, like I said, I mean, I'll have to see more from the LSU women's basketball team. I mean, if we really want to see how good they really are, because, I mean, there's no doubt these girls are good. They are. But if we want to see how good they really are, we'll have to wait until the SEC tournament. And if they were able to make it into the NCAA tournament, in which they do have quality wins on their resume, we'll see how good they really are. I mean, I would say this late push for the rest of the season is going to determine their recruiting for next year.
Obviously, I do think the men are going to make the tournament.
Well, without a question. I mean, I see them getting an at-large bid. I say if they get about 5 more victories, I see them being an at-large.
Yeah. Obviously they're going to compete for the SEC title also. So.
Well, I hope they, if they're going to win the regular season SEC title, I hope they don't get exited after the first game of the SEC tournament because that happened last year against Florida.
Yeah, it did.
If there's one team in this conference that's always had LSU's number in conference play, it would be Florida. But with this LSU basketball team, there's some people that's not sold on the men's basketball. I mean, yes, we're back on men's basketball, but there are not people that's really sold on them because of the close games and them not really being able to finish out. I think we're going to see how talented these guys are when they get to playing Kentucky and Auburn. Those are going to be the 2 games where we're going to see if they can pull out victories against them, then there's going to be a lot of believers in these guys.
Yeah, that's my assessment as well. Kentucky, for certain, is always a measuring stick, and Auburn's doing really well this year. Like you said before the show started, they're 17-2. So, yeah, and that's the way I see it myself. All right. So that wraps up this segment. We'll move on to LSU baseball and then finish that off with talking a little bit about LSU softball and Beth Farina's squad.